Ned Flanders is in trouble guy. So this is another quick joke character who's very well liked and beloved, and it's a pretty popular scene, being that this just one time where, of course, Ned Flanders was in trouble, and this person is completely down in the dumps, just completely done and apathetic with everything, and not having it, and this other character shouts to her, who is supposedly his wife, then told him that what the deal is that Ned Flanders is in trouble, to which this guy completely changes his tune and promptly gets up shouting this, and is ready to help and do everything, and this guy is very well beloved just because of that, and we'd like to see what he went on to do. Pepito! Love this guy, the giant cat who appeared once in an award-wearing show where Pepito is the biggest cat, and that's about it, but I just absolutely love this guy's design, which is why they had to be on this iceberg, and I wish we saw Pepito appear more like the Capital City goofball and stuff, and no shouts to Pepito, do not undersell their power. Yakuza boss. This is a guy who is very recognizable despite their brief appearance at the end of Marge's pretzel stand, and they appeared out of nowhere where Marge was getting harassed by the Mafia, and then they got counterattacked by the Yakuza. And this guy doesn't make a too grand appearance until a bit later into the scene where Homer is watching him, and he just refers to him as the short guy. And he's like, he's just been standing there, he's about to do something cool, and Homer ends up missing whatever that cool thing is, but this guy is well known for being very badass and proving on that one scene despite it mostly being off-screen. Plus, coincidentally, he looks a lot like a certain protagonist from a game series with that certain Yakuza name to it, so that probably helps his popularity a bit. Akira. So this guy is someone who has actually more appearances than you might think, because even after the classic era, he's continued to appear with little tiny scenes, but this dude first appeared with Homer eating the blowfish, and then more notably, he appeared advertising his karate school, which Bart wanted to attend, and he also did some really cool stuff where he broke a board and have this forehead and stuff. And he was also later in Season 8 where he told Homer what the deal with the laundry detergent is, how no, they were not stealing his likeness, Homer just happens to look like a fish and a light bulb put together. I believe that was what it is. As you can tell, they kind of just want this guy to be in fault whenever they have something that is quote-unquote Japanese related going on. As tasteful as that might be, is up to your discretion, but beside that, I think Akira is pretty cool despite him being one of the more forgotten background characters. Nelson's Weasels. These two are interesting because they appeared most prominently in Season 1 during Nelson's debut, where they're harassing Lisa, and then Nelson comes by as their boss, and, they all team up and beat up Bart and stuff, and they appear throughout the rest of the episode until the end when they're setting, the peace tree and they start getting along. I don't think they're present during that, funnily enough. And then they made a couple of small appearances after when Nelson was still mainly antagonistic, and they were around for the soapbox card derby stuff. And then that was basically it. They pretty much completely disappeared after when even being crowd shots or anything. And I find them fascinating because we know next to nothing about these guys, and they used to be Nelson's lackeys before there were other bully characters prominently featured, and they're kind of like the evil versions of Richard and Lewis in a way, and these two also almost just look like friggin' color swaps of each other, which is also kind of funny, but yeah, I just think they're neat, as the meme usually goes. I didn't even really prep that on purpose. Professor Werner von Braun and Rasputin the Friendly Russian. So these two are pretty recognizable for their appearances, despite only having one prominent scene, and in Season 1 at that, where they appeared on TV at the beginning of the episode as a match that Bart was watching. I believe Homer was also checking it out. where it was these two fighting, and yeah, it's very stereotypical 80s golden age wrestling, heel and face types of things, and yeah, it's a very funny moment because of that. And these guys continue to be well known because they, or at least Professor Werner von Braun, appear in the Simpsons arcade game as the first boss. And he does the German move, the ooh noise that became very popular. And yeah, these two are pretty cool, and they still continue to appear in other Simpsons media. The Winfields. One of the most well-known or notable season 1 2 weirdos, and these guys seemed like that they were meant to be like constantly reoccurring before abruptly being dropped after season 2, where even then they mainly just were there to be like there to berate Homer whenever he passed by and laugh at him for like not committing suicide or whatever it was. And their last notable appearance I can think of was in Bart's Dog Gets an F, where Mrs. Winfield calls Homer on the phone to yell at him about Santa's little helper being in her pool, and no, that's probably their most like funny moment too, just because of Homer's reaction or response to it. And yeah, as you can see, these guys are a remnant of when Simpsons was more like stereotypically sitcom-y when it first started out, where they really didn't get like their own like comfortable identity that they're setting yet, and they're just there to be like your usual typical sitcom crappy old asshole complaining entitled judgmental white old neighbors that are completely unlikable, which is probably why they were dropped at all. Is that, like, aside from not really serving a role, there was just nothing really funny about them, and they were just hateable in a not really good way. So yeah, these two got dropped pretty hard, but are still a pinnacle of 1 and 2 standards. Kids with glasses. Yet this refers to these two cool dudes, the girl with the green glasses, and then this boy with the awesome pink shades, who have been silent background characters throughout the whole entire series. They have never done anything. I don't even know if they've ever given, like, unique voices. They've never been given names, as you can tell, but boy howdy do they have some radical, gnarly appearances, and they're so recognizable for that sense, and in a way, they're iconic for that reason alone, despite being such an unknowable footnote amongst the characters in the series. Guillermo. So, this dude is one of the most recognizable, integral employees at Springfield Power Plant. You know, there's Homer, there's Carl, there's Slightly, and then nobody else to give a crap about. Not even mention this Iceberg, there's anybody else. Guillermo is the next one who should be in line, and this dude deserves so much more respect and really should have appeared more, because this is such a cool and friendly dude. Like, of course Mr. Burns knows exactly who he is, and he was the only person to at all try to support and comfort Homer over his debacle of Mr. Burns not knowing who he is, where he laughs about it and he tells Homer how Mr. Burns gets his kids confused. So, you know, shouts to Guillermo for that. Like, this dude was really trying to help Homer, and he deserves all the credit for that, and he needs to be treated better. Howard, from Moaning Lisa, because there's actually another Howard later on in this chart. And like the kids with the glasses, this dude has some cool shades, except he was actually given a role and a name, where he was in Moaning Lisa and he helped Homer for a few scenes get better at the wrestling games so he could be Bart or boxing, but whatever. And yeah, that was it. He completely disappeared afterwards. He wasn't even really around for like any group shots or anything like that afterwards. But people like this guy for his interesting one-time appearance. I thought he was pretty cool. It was some saying that Howard should have appeared later on and like have more roles in other episodes. But alas, he's there, and he was just stuck that one time being the king kid of the arcade, and we never see him at school or anything like that. But Howard, he's definitely out there somewhere just waiting to unleash his powers some more. And next, we're going to get some really weird characters.